After a one-year hiatus, the Players' Championship is back. It's back in March. We are excited for the unofficial fifth major to get underway at TPC Sawgrass, the stadium course in Ponte Vedra Beach, Florida. Of course, one of the big questions going into every Players' Championship is just how difficult the Peninsula/Island Green 17th will play for some of the best players in the world, and just how many of them will succumb to the water surrounding the green. I'm Ryan Ballengee from Golf News Net. Thanks for checking us out once again. Today we are talking about the par 3 17th at TPC Sawgrass. This Pete Dye design was really a Pete Dye and his wife Alice Dye's design, particularly on the 17th hole. Back in the day when they were developing this in the early 80s, this par 3 was originally intended to be a short hole with water to the right of the green, and really not much in front, left, or behind. And eventually, in digging for the golf course, getting sand that they needed to be able to drain it properly, they kept digging and kept digging and kept digging. And one night, as Pete Dye told the story, his wife Alice came to him and said, "Why don't we make this an island green?" And he went all the way with it. And it was controversial at the time, but it's turned out to be one of the most iconic holes in golf and a fascinating test coming down the stretch at the stadium course. So, what's so difficult about a 140-yard, 135-yard shot? Well, for one, there's water everywhere. If you miss the island green, or if you miss the island complex, the green itself is about 68 feet deep and 81 feet wide, so not very large of a target. But you do have the option of hitting the 55 square foot pot bunker to the front right of the green that's still on the island. But if you miss any of those things, odds are you're going in the water. And there have been plenty of victims in recent years at each and every Players' Championship who misses the green and then has to hit from the drop zone or re-tee and go for it. So there's a lot on the line at this point in the round. Typically, you're trying to figure out whether or not you can navigate 16, 17, and 18 in even par, because 16, the par 5, is a plausible birdie or eagle hole. 17, you're just trying to make a par, but maybe a birdie with the right hole location and a brave shot. And 18, one of the most difficult closing holes on the PGA Tour. Again, just trying to make a par. If you get out of there even par, you have done something well. So 17 is a pivotal shot. Hit the surface, 2-putt, move on with your life. But many a tournament has been ruined at the 17th hole. So, how many players are going to go in the water this week? Well, over recent memory, there's been kind of a wide range of total balls in the water every single year. And it seems to vary largely based on weather. So if it's windy outside and windy outdoors and the wind tunnels, it can be difficult to gauge the exact wind direction and the degree of wind that's going to affect the golf ball. That tends to lead to higher numbers of golf balls in the water. In years where it tends to be calmer, balls tend to stay on the green, tend to find them a little bit more because the wind is less tricky. However, in years when Sawgrass is played particularly hard and fast, hitting the putting surface isn't necessarily the only job. It's holding it too. So you can't go too deep on the putting surface or you'll go off the back. You can't come up short, obviously, you won't bounce on. So it makes the effective hitting area much shorter when it's firm and fast. But right now, the Players is now played in March. This is going to be the second full year for the Players back in March after a decade in May. In 2019, we had 45 balls in the water at 17. When it was back in March, it was a little bit soft. It's still 45 balls went in the water. Now, in firmer years, we've had 69 balls go in the water. We've had a lot more than, in the 40s go in the water. So if you look at the last 5 Players' Championships played in March, so going back before the 10 years in May, we got 29, 30, 68, and 57. And then in 2019, we've got 45 balls in the water. So for an average, in the last 5 Players' Championships that were contested in March, obviously over a 20-year span, basically, we have an average of 45.8 balls that go in the water over the course of the tournament. Most of those happen in the first and second rounds. Typically, third and fourth, not so much. But if you look at the last 5 Players' Championships, period, you have 45, 36, 69, 54, and 45 balls in the water over those last 5 years. So 19, 18, 17, 16, 15. 16 in particular was very fascinating because of the firm and fast conditions. But if you look at those last 5 played, you have an average of 49.8 balls that go in the water over the course of a tournament. Now, why am I telling you this? One, it's a fascinating hole, and we just kind of want to know about all the potential misery. But second, there is a prop bet in play for those of you who want to bet on this kind of thing about how many balls will go in the water this week. And the number that we've seen in a couple different sports books is 43 or 43 and a half. So given the average over the last 5 years, you would probably want to look at the over here. Not saying that that's necessarily going to be the case, because there have been a wide plot of numbers, anywhere from in the 20s to in even higher in the 60s and 70s over the course of a week. So it is possible to find it right in that sweet spot, possible to go way under, and possible to go way long. But given the weather forecast this week, with temperatures in the mid to high 70s throughout the week and winds about 10 to 15 miles per hour each day, I think you're going to look at the over, because just the possibility that if you get a little bit of a flare, a little bit of a gust, just for here and there, 30-minute, 40-minute, 1-hour stretches during the tournament, each day you're going to get guys that are just going to naturally go in the water. So I like that over prop bet. There's another interesting bet that goes into the history of this golf hole that I think it's worth at least talking about. PointsBet has put out a prop bet this year, 150 to 1, that there is a score of 10 or worse on the par 3 17th at TPC Sawgrass. So how likely is that to actually happen? Well, there's a reason it's 150 to 1. In the history of the Players' Championship at TPC Sawgrass, played at other places before, Sawgrass opened in the 80s, there have been 3 scores out of 16,083 of 10 or higher. You can do the math. It is very unlikely that there's going to be a score of 10 or higher. Now, if you can get a prop on 9 or higher, you got a better chance. You would have about 10 of those altogether over the years. But the wide variety of scores on this hole is 1 to 8, and most of them are 2s, 3s, and 4s. So it's very unlikely that this one's going to hit. Might be fun if you really want to throw 5 or 10 on it and watch someone's misery turn into your profit, but I would stay away from that one if I were you. But all told, over the history of the Players' Championship, there have been 802 balls that have gone in the water during tournament play at TPC Sawgrass. And that's 10.8% of total tee shots. 10.8%. Now that's a staggering percentage compared to everywhere else on the PGA Tour. But just so you know, about 1 in 10 balls are going to go in the water. But what about for you and me if we played the stadium course? Well, the folks at TPC Sawgrass say approximately 100,000 golf balls go into the water every year at the 17th. Now, given how many rounds that they do, between 25 and 30,000, that's basically 3 or 4 a player. So some of you who would hit the green easily, well, you're 1 ball. But for every couple of you, there's a guy that loses 6, 7, 12 balls in the water trying to hit the green. So it's a circle of life. It all kind of balances out. But for us, it's a much more difficult task than for the best players in the world. Nonetheless, it is a fascinating hole. It's going to captivate our attention this entire week, and we can't wait to watch it with you. I'm Ryan Ballengee saying thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.